Welcome to the Casey Cease Show. Casey is your entrepreneurial guide. Dive into weekly insights that blend inspiration with practical strategies to grow your business with integrity. From boosting sales to building strong relationships, Casey shares the essentials to help both your venture and personal dreams flourish. Ready to elevate your entrepreneurial journey? Let's dive in.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Casey Cease Show. Today I'm here with my good friend Tommy Urban D. Kyllonen. Tommy, so good to have you on the show, man. It's been a little while since we've had a chance to connect. Why don't you just take a minute and introduce yourself and give a little bit of your background to our listeners?
Yeah, man, Casey, it's great to be here with you. You've been a blessing in my life, coached me through a bunch of stuff that we'll even talk about today, some of the stuff that you helped me navigate through. And so a little bit about me. I'm an artist. I'm a pastor at the same time, so I wear both of those hats. I'm originally from Philly, so you hear a little bit of that East Coast vibe in me. But I live in Tampa, Florida, and I've been here in Tampa now for 28 years. So I am officially a Tampa. I'm even going for the Bucks now. I mean, Tom Brady kind of helped with that, though. That kind of pulled me over. But anyways, grew up as a pastor's kid, had a rebellious streak for a season, and then I really felt a calling to do urban ministry in specific on my life. And so I went to Southeastern in Lakeland, and I thought I was going to go back up north, and God took me to Tampa, and I've been here ever since, and I love it. My wife, she's also from the East Coast, from New York City, and Tampa's home, and started as youth pastor at our church, and got pushed into being the lead pastor about 6 years later because the youth ministry was going so well. They're like, man, you're killing it with the youth ministry. Why don't you just take over? And I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. At the same time, I'm also, like I said, an artist. So this wall behind me has all my albums. I've actually done 9 Christian hip hop albums over the years. And this wall is actually like the wall of all the artists that have been here at Crossover Church at some point and at our leadership conference and at concerts. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, I'm sure. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey. And I've been here 28 years and watched the church go from just a handful of people to now impacting thousands of people. So it's been awesome.
What I love about your ministry is that you are intentionally bivocational and you serve in a congregation that affirms that and supports that. But talk to us a little bit about what's a typical year of life, ministry, business, things like that. I mean, tell us a little bit about Flavor Fest, how that got started. Tell us a little bit about your writing background. We'll dig more into those specifically, but I want to give context to whether they're viewing on YouTube or listening on a podcast channel. You're being very humble and somewhat discreet about all that you're actively involved in. And I'd love to unpack, and not to brag, but just to say, like, hey, because you have a lot of lessons you've learned on empowering and working with a team. You have a lot of lessons learned and really focusing on areas that you are uniquely gifted to serve in. And so I'd love for you to share a bit of, in general, you're typically like me, you have 3 to 5 different projects at least going on at a time, and would love to just unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, Casey, I think that's why we connected so much. Our friend Greg Atkinson kind of put us together, and immediately I'm like, wait a minute, this guy was a pastor, but he is a publisher. He's written books. He speaks. He does. Oh man, and I've learned a lot from you to help me kind of navigate being a 3 and the 3 to 5 projects for real. And so,
because that's like normal. It almost feels lazy. If I only have 3 to 5 projects going, it's like, what am I doing with my life? Yeah. Stresses my wife out though, because she is not wired the same way, but we've grown to appreciate each other. Yeah.
She's a 1 and she's very focused on one thing and very structured and organized, where me, it's kind of some organized chaos. That's the artist side of me as well. But yeah, so I generally have several different things going on, and my church, it's an urban ministry. So economically, we've always never had as much as a suburban church of our size, even though we're larger now. We see close to 1,000 people every Sunday in person, and about another 1,000 people are watching online. So we're in a good place. Financially, the church is doing, we're healthy, we're okay. But I've always chosen to say, hey, I want to have a lower salary so I can be a blessing to the church. Mm-hmm. And there were seasons where I really didn't even get a salary earlier on, and I was depending on my music and going out and speaking and just different side hustles that I had that really kind of fit in together. I never was like, oh, I'm doing real estate on the side. No, it was always like ministry type stuff.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons we're also connected is because we're connectors. And I'm always trying to help other leaders win. When I do something at my church that worked, I'm coaching some other guys. I'm showing them a resource I found or, some new thing that we developed. I did a coaching network for during the pandemic called the Innovative Pastors Network because we were constantly having to innovate
Yep.
and pivot, do new things like every month. And so I was sharing what we were doing at our church that was working and bringing some other people on, and guys in the group were sharing. And so I love to do that. I love to help others. Obviously, we can't help everybody, but when you're doing some coaching in a group, you can get a big group of people that you can help at the same time. And so, yeah, so I've done a variety of those different things with coaching, with writing, with doing music, with doing some consulting with different churches as well. Yeah, I just have always had that entrepreneur hat. Plus, I have a clothing line because I'm an artist. And so I've designed some different merch, which is like denim jackets and, of course, shirts and hoodies and stuff like that. So when I go out and speak at places, I'll have some of my merch there as well and my clothing. And we also have a store at our church, a merch store that my stuff is in, as well as we have a bunch of different other Christian clothing brands and books and Bibles and stuff like that. It's not your typical church bookstore. It's really pretty cool. So yeah, it's cool that I get everything here at my ministry. And we have a lot of entrepreneurs, by the way. It has that whole vibe and that flavor. And I think in this day and age, like if you're going to be a ministry that's going to be thriving and growing and be successful, you got to have that entrepreneurial edge to some degree. And if that's not who you are as a leader, which I know a lot of people watching this podcast, that is you, you need to surround yourself with some people that maybe that's more their strength than it is yours. And I think I told you this, Casey, but our church actually launched an entrepreneur ministry.
Yeah, you told me that. And had a
Yeah.
conferences like it's an outreach type thing, right? Because you bring entrepreneurs from your community in to empower and help entrepreneurs.
Our group they're called the Crossoverpreneurs. And we do an event every year called the Innovation Summit. And we bring in some of the best people from within that are doing like TED Talks and workshops. Then at the same time, we'll bring some different people in our city that are known to be big in crypto or real estate or investing and, some of those sexy buzzwords that a lot of entrepreneurs are trying to learn more about and get into. But that's been great outreach for us to reach a lot of new people. And at the same time, then as we mentor them and we start to build with them and coach them, it becomes discipleship. And so my dream has been like, as we've been launching this thing, we have almost 200 entrepreneurs that are actively in the ministry now. Like, what if the church could be known for the place where entrepreneurs could go? It could be the hub where they could get networking and coaching and resources and even funding. I don't know if I told you this. I think I did. Yeah. Last year at our Innovation Summit, we had a partner that raised $100,000 of venture capital and invested that into 3 minority-owned local businesses in our community. And our name was on it. They wanted us to be like the face of it. Like it wasn't them, it was, hey, Crossover Church. They're the ones that helped put this together. And so they wanted to see us be like the heroes in the community, which was really cool. So yeah, there's been a lot of great stuff with that's happening. And yeah.
Well, and yeah, I mean, I'm in several different entrepreneur groups, and I was talking to a bunch of Christian entrepreneurs, and it wasn't a Christian entrepreneur group, but they were just lamenting that most of them don't really have a place at church, right? Because
Yeah.
if they're not like deep theologians, then basically they only get spoken to if the church needs money. And I don't think that's all nefarious because these people are typically generous. They're typically highly driven and they're happy to give. One of them was saying, like, I feel bad because I feel like they're getting the easy part, but not my real strength that I could bring to really build the body of Christ. And what you've
Yeah.
done is you've turned that around saying, like, well, whether you give money or not, we want you to give your expertise, your experience, and we value that highly. And I think you're heading the right direction there. Talk a little bit with us about Flavor Fest and how it started, what it's grown to, and what you're seeing God do through that outside of the walls of your own congregation.
Yeah. So Flavor Fest started out of a need. And I'll go back to the wall back here. So right there, that pink CD, which I didn't choose that to be the color. That was my very first album that came out in 1996. It was independent. Did another indie album in 98. And one of the songs on that album landed on a compilation.
Okay.
If you remember, like, compilations were, compilation CDs. And it was nationally distributed. And that song actually charted on some obscure Christian hip hop charts on the internet that were out back then in the late 90s. And some record labels started to call me. And I ended up signing a record deal with 7th Street Records, which was a new label. And that album right there was my first national album that was actually in the stores.
Okay.
And I remember that when we used to have to go to the stores to
Yeah.
buy music.
Yeah.
So
Blockbuster music,
it was
baby.
like, we're so spoiled now.
Yeah.
You know, we just, the click of our phone, everything is there and you can listen to whatever album you want. You used to have to actually go and find the CD and buy it. And it was, you know, CDs were $15 to $18
Yep.
just for one album. So anyways, but that first CD came out in stores nationally around the country. It's called The Missing Element. Inside of the CD jacket on the inside, I had a picture with my youth group. And there was about 200 kids behind me, very diverse group of kids. And, you know, a little paragraph under it that talked about our youth ministry, that we were using basketball leagues, hip hop concerts, breakdancing classes, art classes, drama classes, all kinds of stuff to reach these unchurched kids. And suddenly, like, we were the experts. Everybody started calling our church, emailing us. Everybody comes to Florida on vacation. So we started to literally every week. And even till this day, we have visitors every Sunday that come from around the country. They're like, yeah, I was here in Florida and I follow you. And so they come on vacation. They're like, and we're going to go to Irvin D's church, Disney and Irvin D's church.
There you go.
So all these people were asking us questions about how we were doing it, how we started, or something in their city like that. They want to revitalize their youth ministry, their church. So, you know, those conversations we had with people were helpful, but they didn't really do it justice to explain fully what we were doing and teach them. And it led to even more questions sometimes. So we just came up with the idea, said, hey, what if we did a weekend when we could invite people to come down and we just did workshops and they were able to, like, you know, experience a service. We do an outreach, you know, in the community as well. And we do a big concert because at the time, like, some churches didn't know how to do concerts,
Yeah.
you know, especially like a hip hop concert. And I know that because I was now a national artist. And sometimes people would, you know, pay several $1,000s to have me come to their city, fly me and a couple of other guys out and put on a concert. And they put all that investment into it. And we'd get to the church or the gym or the room that the concert was in, and all the lights were on. And they got this little, like, boom box with a microphone connected to it. And we're like, are you serious? Like, I thought you had a sound system. And, you know, so we had to really begin to teach churches, like, no, we got to do this in excellence. And you need to have good sound, and you need to turn all the lights out, and you need to have some stage lighting and maybe some intelligent lights, and, you know, and have a good DJ and have someone that's going to host the event that's going to keep it flowing. So there's not awkward moments between the artists. Like, there's a 2-minute gap before the next person comes out awkwardly, like, hey guys, you know. And so they were able to come and see how we were doing these. We were doing a hip hop concert every quarter, and we would usually gather 300 or 400 people. So they were able to come and experience that, people from all over the country. So that's how Flavor Fest started. Really, man, we've always had the heart to be a teaching church. And the first Flavor Fest, we had about 70 leaders and a couple hundred people came to the concert. And from there, it just grew to where now we usually see about 300 to 400 people that come to the conference here, and over 1,000 people that will attend the evening music festivals between the 2 nights. And there's lots of different elements that we have throughout the weekend. So we do general sessions, and we usually have 7 breakout workshops. We have one for church planting, one for outreach. Generally, sometimes we have an apologetics track. We have a women in ministry track. We have an entrepreneur track, a track for artists, and a track for, which one did I miss? I think I missed one. Artist, women, youth ministry. Anyways, so there's like 7 tracks, and we have lunch those 2 days together, the concerts in the evening. So it's a lot of great learning, a lot of great networking, a lot of people that come from our tribe. It's very diverse. It's multi-ethnic. It skews younger. People that are doing ministry in a more urban environment. And they get to come and they're like, man, I feel like everybody gets me here because I go to the conference for my denomination or this conference or whatever. And like, everybody doesn't really understand what I do. But when I'm here, it feels like everybody's doing similar stuff and it feels like family. And then, yeah, in the evening, the concert's a lot of fun. We have national Christian hip hop artists. And then we have a bunch of indie artists that will open up for them as well. And we'll have a beat battle one night where producers go head to head and play their beats and the crowd votes over it and stuff. we have a 16 bar challenge where rappers will do their best 16 bars and they'll get voted on to move to whoever is the champion that year. We have a breakdancing battle. We've done beatboxing battles before, DJ battle, graffiti. Like we had a mural festival last year, which we are doing again this year. We had about 10 incredible graffiti mural artists that come from around the country. And they did the entire west wall of our building, about 20 feet high, about 250 feet long. It's beautiful. And there's like murals the whole way down. It's amazing. This year, they're going to come and do the back of our building. So our whole building getting tatted up. But yeah, there's been a lot of great stuff that come out of Flavor Fest. Churches have been planted. Churches have been revitalized. Great relationships and networking has happened. Friendships have been built. Support has taken place. So our next thing, like with Flavor Fest, I know I'm explaining a lot. There's so much to say. So last year and this year, we decided to take it on tour because everybody can't come to Tampa.
Right.
Everybody can't afford always to get on a flight and come down and stay for a couple of days, even though we make it super affordable. Still, everything else has gotten more expensive with inflation, right? And a lot of churches are struggling. And a lot of urban ministries still haven't fully recovered since the pandemic. And so we said, man, we feel like God is calling us to take this to some other cities and be right there in the mix. They don't have to get a flight, a hotel. It's super affordable. You can just come for the day. So we're doing these one-day events. And we're doing New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Houston. And then we'll be back in Tampa this November. So as we're recording this right now, we're getting ready to go to New York City this weekend. And so, we're looking to train a couple hundred leaders in each city. We're coming to Texas with you guys at the end of June as well. And so it's going to be amazing. We're super excited. And the last thing I'll say about Flavor Fest, I promise.
No, I love it. Keep going.
The next reiteration, as I'm getting older, man, we're both getting older, bro. And so I'm thinking about legacy. And the conference is great. And it's helped plant some churches and revitalize churches and build stuff. And that's awesome. But we're going to be launching in 2025 a official church network for urban churches where we'll provide regular community coaching, sharing resources. And one of the big things is we're going to plant churches together.
That's awesome.
So we'll offer residencies, assessment, all that stuff, and plant churches together. And we're looking to partner with some other church planting organizations. We're in the middle of doing some of that this year, doing some of the relationship building and solidifying some things. And of course, the people that are part of the network that'll be the one thing that we all give towards is some new church plants that we'll plant together, but to connect with some other church planting organizations that don't know what to do with urban.
Yeah.
Nobody really does. And the Capital C Church is not planting much urban churches. And the reality is America is becoming more brown and more urban.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to happen even quicker than we thought with all the people that are coming across the border.
Right.
Even more so. It's going to rapidly, in the next decade, the country is going to change so much. And so the Capital C Church has to have strategies of like, how are we going to plant more multi-ethnic churches in urban environments that are diverse? Because the model, to be honest, with most church planting is let's plant a church in the new suburb or in the new gentrifying neighborhood. And church planting has slowed down quite a bit in the last 5 to 10 years. And I believe a part of that is because they're running out of the ideal locations that economically work. And so we have to rethink that. I know the model for that works great economically.
I mean, it's a financial play if you want to be a first mover in a new community, upwardly mobile, plenty of resources for the church and all that, which, pragmatically and objectively from a business standpoint, okay, that makes sense. From a kingdom standpoint, the strategic planting of gospel-centered churches in urban environments is continually going to provide the hope for the world and the hope for this nation, right? Like to resource it that direction. And I always tell my buddies that go plant in the suburbs and get their wealthy people, I'm like, awesome, man. I hope you have like a 30% of your income goes to urban church planting. And so, but I think you're speaking to something though, even beyond church planting, which is, I want to talk about the story behind the story, which is the role of creativity in a local church, right? Because you always talk about it like, well, of course, right? Because you're naturally a creative person. You're a creator. You love to create. But I think so many congregations, especially those who mean very well, who want to be right theologically, miss the fact that we worship a creative God and that these creative expressions aren't just in a singular line of what's there. I mean, you're just talking about, hip hop and bebopping and blah, 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 just contextual, but underpinning of all of that is creativity, right? Creative
Yes.
innovations with the goal of glorifying God and making much of Jesus Christ, right? That's not divorced from it. But
No.
I think one of the secret sauces that, as I've known you and watched your ministry expand, is there's no hesitation in trying, in learning from failure and innovating with creativity. And you remember what it was like to be rebellious and lost, and to then be found by Christ. And
Ready to skyrocket your business and truly connect with your audience on a whole new level? Unleash the power of your story with Lucid Books. Imagine transforming your insights and experiences into a captivating book that not only cements your status as a thought leader, but also weaves a strong bond with your ideal clients. At Lucid Books, we're more than a publishing house. We're your creative partners on a journey to turn your wisdom into a masterpiece that speaks directly to the hearts and minds of your audience. Join forces with us, and let's embark on this incredible adventure together. Your story has the power to inspire, engage, and elevate. Are you ready to share it with the world?
so talk to us a little bit about how you've helped your church, moving from the youth ministry to pastorate, to embrace creativity and embrace innovation, because you did not plant this church, right? You were the youth minister and graduated up. And so there was some culture change, I'm sure, that had to take place along the way as
Yeah.
you're doing it. And I know a lot of my friends that are involved either as lay elders like myself now. So I'm not on staff, but I still serve as one of the pastors of my church. But those who are even, pastoring churches that need to do more to embrace creativity. What's some insight you have based on that and the importance of creativity in a church?
Yeah, creativity is, I think now it's even more important than ever, because people are able to see creativity every day on this thing right here. And so if we continue to do church the way that we've always done it, and obviously there's some things that we're not going to change. We're not going to change the biblical foundations and scripture and the principles, but the way that some of that might be packaged and the way it's expressed, I think we need to be open-handed with that. I mean, I just got out of a staff meeting with my team and talking about one of our assimilation processes, our discipleship processes, and it's a class. And not as many people have been going to the class lately, but the world is changing so fast. So I've just put it out there. I'm like, is a class for everybody anymore? I don't know. It's something that we need to at least ask, because everybody's used to things being so rapid and so fast. And there's so many different ways that people are learning now. So it's creativity, I think, is always going to be changing and morphing as the message has to remain the same. And so I think we got to be open to it, because at the end of the day, we might say as leaders, oh, I like to change. I love change. I love new stuff. I think on one hand, some of us do, but all of us on the other hand, no, we like some things the way they are because it's comfortable, and so you can be innovative at one point in your ministry, and the whole bell curve thing where you were innovative, you're changing, and then you get stuck into doing that, and then it starts to go the other way because you're not continuing innovating and changing and moving with what's happening in the world and the culture. So a little bit of our story, when I first became the pastor, I had a lot of advantages. One of our biggest asset was freedom. We only had about 40 adults. I was one of the oldest, and I was 28. So most of them were youth leaders, my youth leaders that were all in their early to mid 20s. We did have a few people that were older than me. I think about 7 or 8 that were older than me. And most of them were just a little older. There was one couple that was literally they were in their 50s at the time, or about 60 almost. They were the old people at the church, and that was the guy that had been there before I'd even been there. He was one of the head elders. But even him, he didn't like hip hop, but he loved to see kids getting saved and baptized and kids getting plugged in. And he saw so much ministry, real ministry and movement happening. He would say stuff like, man, this is the most people that got saved in the last year, more than all the history of the church, and he was excited to see that. So we had some rare older people that really were supportive and loved it. There was a few people that transitioned out in the first year that I was there, but they left in a good way, saying, hey, we can see God's moving. The church has grown. Even on Sunday, we doubled. We went from 40 to 80. But they're like, it's just not our cup of tea. But you're the guy for the job. We support that. We love you. And so there was good transition that happened with like 2 or 3 families, but there was so many new people that were coming in. But one of the first things we did, Casey, was music is a big deal for people. And you have so many people so many churches that are like, you go and they have nobody under 40 hardly, and they're like, oh, we don't have anybody. It's all older people. And some churches you go to, there's hardly anybody under 60, you know, and they're just like, we can't figure out how to reach new people. But you listen to the soundtrack of their church and it's totally outdated. It's not current at all. So one of the first moves I made when I became the pastor is me and a college student. He had some tools and he was handy. I wasn't super, but I had the vision. We built a DJ booth on the stage,
Oh,
a
wow.
permanent DJ. Yeah. And we had like, the different levels for where like the turntables were. And there was like a hole that we put where the milk crate could go in where they could put all the records in it, stuff like that. And so we built this permanent DJ booth out of wood, and behind it, it was like raised. So the DJ was a little higher on the stage and it was pretty cool. Then we had a guy in the church that did metal work and he came and wrapped it in this like polished brushed steel, and it looked really cool. And there was this hole that we put in the front, and we put a logo, the church logo there with a black light on it with black light paint that glowed. So it was like the coolest thing. But the DJ was one of our main instruments for our worship team, for our band. They would sing worship songs to a instrumental R&B, hip hop, Christian hip hop instrumental that had a melody to it. And we would match up worship songs with that because we didn't have musicians.
Yeah.
We maybe had a drummer, but we didn't have a keyboard player. We didn't have any music hardly. So that was a big thing. And then we started to be creative with how we taught messages. We would tie in illustrations and video clips, and we started using PowerPoint we put TV screens up because everybody's visual. This was, over 20 years ago. But at the time, it was still very like, innovative and progressive at that time. And obviously all that stuff continues to change and reiterate, but people are very visual. And I think we need to really tap into that. The visual and the creative is don't be afraid of it. Use it for God's glory.
So, speaking of innovation and creativity, you're not just an author. You come up with an experience, a branded experience with your books. And when you and I were doing some coaching together, you were working on your latest project. I asked you to get one of your boxes available. Why don't you tell us about your latest book? I mean, you have a lot of books out, but I want to talk specifically about this. And I just want to give imagination to those folks out there of like, what can I do beyond the book? Talking about creatively capturing the gospel. And it's an outreach to a very niche group of people that are very committed to what they're into. So why don't you tell us about your latest project?
Yeah. So I'll start off with saying like artwork and visual presentation and branding has always been a big deal to me as an artist. So my album covers, I always wanted to have really like amazing album covers. Now, as I've moved more into being an author, man, the artwork on the book and inside of the book is a big deal. And even then the packaging. So I did a book 2 years ago that had some unique packaging. If you ever get, Casey, do you ever get like a pre-order book from somebody, from a friend or on a special list, and it comes in like a special package?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want to create something like this for everybody, not just for the influencers, not just the cool people that are on the list. I want everybody to get this experience. And so we did this special packaging with a book that I had called Frames. It came in this custom box, and there was a pair of frames inside of it, and a master class came with it. So then like with my next book, I'm like, man, what am I going to do next? How am I going to level up? And God really put in my heart to do a book about sneaker culture, because I'm a sneakerhead. I wear Jordans and sneakers every Sunday when I preach, and every day. That's who I am. I've always been that way. But even before it got cool.
Before Preachers and Sneakers, the website? Yeah.
Was like, man, they're ruining everything, man. This is what I'm doing, man. Now every pastor that used to wear suits is now wearing Jordans.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
come on, man.
This thing, right? Anyways, so God just gave me this idea to do this book. I wasn't even sure about which direction I was going to go at first, but the first idea I came up with, Casey, was I'm going to put the book in a custom shoebox. That's really going to I'm going to make it look like a shoebox. And then God began to download in me as I began to study the word and say, what does the Bible say about feet and shoes and steps and direction? And man, there's a ton of stuff. And so then I started to kind of map out what the chapters were going to be about, in which direction, and God began to breathe on it. But I got a great graphic designer. Shout out to my man, Josue. And so we went through several different covers that we put on Instagram, had people vote over it and whatnot. But the cover that we landed on was very artistic, and it was almost cartoonish. And then we created the box, and I wanted that artwork to be on the top of the box and the rest of the box to be a solid color to look like an actual shoe box. And so I'm holding in my hand, this is the custom shoe box, and for Gotta Be the Shoes, where sneaker culture meets faith. And this is the top of it. So, I mean, it's a really cool
That's cool.
box. This is actually the bigger box. So we have another box that just the book comes in, and that is black around the sides, and it's a little bit smaller. This is the bigger box, the deluxe box,
Deluxe.
because
I love it.
when you open it, and by the way, we put sneaker paper in it and everything to give you that real experience. The book is, you can get the hardback version as well. And so see how it's got, that's the artwork that was out on the top of the box. Well, we actually did some custom Jordans. And so this is actually the box that you get the shoes and you get the book. And so we put the book cover in the side panel of some Air Jordan 1s. And then we put the logo on the back, the Gotta Be the Shoes. And the O in that is actually the bottom of an Air Jordan 1.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
O in there. So, which has a unique classic design. And so it's on both sides. And so it's super unique. We're actually going to be doing these in some different colorways and some different colors. We're going to do a black pair that we're working on. That's going to come out. It's endless with all the different things you could do with the Jordan 1. So the book, on the inside of the book, what I love about it is we did full colors. So it kind of has almost like a magazine type vibe. Trying to find a good page here. It has almost like a magazine vibe to it, glossy paper. And then we did a photo shoot with several of the sneakerheads from my church that brought their best pairs. So there's about 100 original pictures in the book. And so it's very visually engaging, which especially for the niche audience that we're trying to reach with it, they need to be visually engaged and to stay locked in. And then at the end of each chapter, there's a QR code and you can watch the masterclass. So there's 8 chapters, 8 videos that goes with it. And I really am excited about this project. Everybody out there, you might not be into sneakers yourself, but you know somebody that's into sneakers. And this can be like a great gift for them. It's for believers, but it's also for people that maybe they're not there yet. And it's written in a way that's very outreach oriented. There's some stuff in here about sneaker culture, sneaker history, how Michael Jordan first got his deal, but almost didn't with Nike. And so there's a lot of cool stuff that's tied in that'll keep people's attention, but then yet it has biblical principles that are tied in every single chapter. There's stories, there's things going on. Talks about fake sneakers, bootlegs. They call them reps nowadays. And just how there's a lot of people out there that they're faking, they're fake versions. And God wants us to be our authentic, original self. And so, so the book, it critically helps people think about purpose, about identity, about materialism, how much is too much, and about eternity. So even though it's a book on fashion and art and sneakers, there's some really deep messages in it. It's been touching a lot of people. So,
well, that's amazing. I love your heart to reach people. I love that you have a pastoral heart, the way that you engage with your flock, with creativity, with your culture, and you're a true example of growing where you are planted. And so how can people find you online? How can they connect with you online?
Yeah, well, if you guys want to get a copy of the book, the website for that is freeshoesbook.com. And I've been so passionate about getting this message out to as many people as possible that we are actually giving the book away for free. Yeah, no strings attached. But you do have to pay for the shipping because I own the book, but I don't own the post office.
Right.
So you just have to pay for the shipping, take care of that. And if you want to get the shoes, that's not free. So you can upgrade if you want to buy the shoes or upgrade and you want to get the custom box and stuff like that. But the book itself, I'm sure you could think of somebody that, man, this could be a great gift for them. Even if you go ahead and get the whole box package and stuff, it's a really cool thing that will stick out and stand out to them. I know a lot of people that have gotten it. I regularly see people that are putting it up on their shelf and stuff. I've been different places and they got it got my book up on the shelf with the box and stuff. So something for a sneakerhead they could want to display. It's really cool. So that, and if you want to follow me on social media, all the platforms, Urban D 813, kind of rhymes. Urban D 813. 813 is the area code. That's kind of a little bit of a hip hop thing. Urban D was taken, so I added the 813. But I'm on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook and TikTok and all that good stuff.
Well, Tommy, thanks so much for taking the time to stop by. I'm sure we'll be having you back on here again soon.
Definitely, man. Great to be with you, Casey.
Thanks, man.
That wraps up this episode of The KCC Show. Make sure to visit our website, thekccshow.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. You might also want to check out our book for business consultation, available at Lucid Books, or double your sales strategy session at Planify Agency. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode.